Hi guys, and welcome to Living Life by Design with Amanda Machaka. Today we're talking to Dr. Kunle Osoare, who is a medical doctor all the way from Nigeria. He's practicing here in Johannesburg, South Africa. Now, Dr. Kunle is not only a medical doctor, but he's also a pastor. He pastors at Freedom Assembly International. He's here to tell us how he's balancing both, making sure that he's still living his life of purpose. Is he doing that? Doc, welcome to Channel Africa, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Amanda.
Now, I've just said a mouthful, but obviously it didn't start there. I introduced you as a medical doctor from Nigeria. You were born and raised in Nigeria, I believe.
That's correct.
Whereabout in Nigeria?
Ogun State, that's in the southwest of Nigeria. Yeah.
And you were born to a family of how many?
I'm actually an only child.
Wow, interesting.
Yes.
Okay. And parents still alive?
My father is late. He passed on in 1998. And my mom is still very much alive. In fact, she just went back home and we did her 79th birthday.
Oh, so she's staying alone now in
Yes,
Nigeria?
she's staying alone in Nigeria.
Okay, and she visits you often?
She visits and she moans about me not coming home frequently enough.
And how was life like growing up in Nigeria?
Well, growing up, I would say that for me it was challenging. It was tough. One will say that being an only child, I had everything, but poverty, challenges, and trying to make it through medical school, fundings, and a lot of things were the main thing. But then I'd always had that dream to just make sure that I make a difference. So I wanted to do something that will stand out. My dad wanted me to do medicine. I wanted to do aeronautic engineering.
Okay, interesting. At what age did you know that you wanted to go into engineering?
I'd known that since I was about 16 years of age, yes.
And you decided, okay, let me listen to daddy.
Well, it's more of a sentimental thing. I'm an only child, and the cultural setting is that he has done very well not marrying another wife in order to have other children. So the least I can do is make him happy and make my mom stay, you know. So then I said, okay, it's fine. At least you're lucky or you're blessed that I have enough of the criteria to meet to read medicine, because he wanted to do medicine. And
so
he
he
couldn't.
was living his dream
That's
through
right.
you.
That's right.
How common is that though, hey?
That is very common in our time, in our age, and in our generation. A lot of parents, live their dreams on through their children.
But for you, it didn't turn out so bad, because then you didn't become frustrated in pursuing medicine because it's not something that you initially wanted to do?
You can say that maybe because my personality of being somebody who has a listening ear. So if you are good at listening to people and have a heart to care, then apart from the academic, aptitude, then you should do well in medicine, because you need to be able to listen to your patients. You need to have an empathy for them, for the things they're going through. So that made it easy for me, as it were.
Did you have any conversations with yourself to say, okay, fine, if this is something that I'm going to pursue, I might as well learn to love it?
At that time, you don't really, this generation now is all about so
it was different back then.
Yes, it was very different back then. He just mentioned it. I would love you to do medicine. And then by the time I was going for the interview, he already coached me what I was supposed to say. Just say you love to help people. Just say all those kind of right answers. Of course, it came up at the interview because they looked at my results. They said, you've got very high marks in maths. You got good marks in physics. So why are you doing medicine instead of engineering?
Wow.
Of course, I didn't say
because
Daddy said. I just said what I was supposed to say.
Yeah.
I love to help people and so on and so forth, and that was it.
But now, looking deep inside, it was not a lie. You love helping people, because you wouldn't be where you are today if it wasn't for that. So would you say that your love for helping people helped you through med school, and now as you are practicing and branching into pastoring as you are pastoring at the moment?
Yes, well, one would say that, but one would also say that the tenacity to want to do well in anything that you face anyway, that was it already. That was one of the things that put me through. And you can say fate. I would say the plan of God for my life, eventually turned out that is what I was supposed to do, and he kind of behind the scenes, maybe through my dad, but guided, and that is that. Because there are lots of people that come to church even from the practice. Some people get to know me, some people just want to hear me preaching, looking different from the doctor they were talking to. And some actually just, there are certain things that you have to be able to help them with the challenges they have with their health, and obviously sometimes God comes into the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You did mention that you didn't have a rosy background. It was a background of poverty and lack. So what were the challenges that you faced at med school, or was there any sponsor that you got along the way?
Yes, Amanda, that is a long story. You see, because you don't have things like bursaries and scholarships and all those things back then. And by my second year in medical school, my dad passed on. So now I was alone with my mom. And, I never really, throughout medical school, I never really bought a shoe. I had to go to cobblers to make shoes for me, and things like that. I couldn't afford to buy textbooks. I had to read the handouts and then stay awake at night to read the textbooks of my other colleagues, who had textbooks and things like that, and manage life as you can. I'll prepare meals for a whole month, packed in about 4 different packs, put in their freezer, each one for a week. And if it finishes on Thursday, then you have to fast the remaining Friday, Saturday, and Sunday before you start the next one, and things like that. So, but the whole thing is just that you just keep on with it, and you keep going. You don't stop. That's it, yeah.
And of course, that's very difficult, I would believe. What did you tell yourself so that you can keep going and not give up in the process?
The first thing you tell yourself is that this too shall pass. It is 6 years, 7 years medical school. It's going to finish. And then I'll start working. And then I'll start earning. And then I'll be able to do other things that I would like to do. And then be able to, to then fulfill destiny and other things that I wanted.
So you focused at the end result.
That's right.
And that's what kept you going.
That's right.
All right. After this, we're going to hear more about what you did after med school, where you went.
Share in the life journey of our guests from around Africa who live their lives by purpose.
Hello, my name is Solomon Izanga Shams and you're watching Life by Design.
Welcome back to Life by Design right here on Channel Africa, where we're bringing you news, views and interviews from an African perspective. And today in studio, we're joined by Dr. Kunle Osoare, who is a medical practitioner from Nigeria, practicing in Johannesburg, South Africa. Doc, welcome back and thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Amanda.
So you completed med school. It wasn't easy and you started practicing.
Yeah.
How was it like to finally see your work paying off?
I think the very first time where you finish med school, you start, you have to do internship, which is supervised training. You do get earnings. And so the very first time when one is there now and they call you, Doc, can you do this? It's a different feeling entirely.
Right. So rewarding and so fulfilling.
Exactly, yes, yeah. But then now, it's now an opportunity for you to now begin to put back, and affect lives. And I think basically because of the relationship I had with God. I gave my life to Christ when I was 14. So that also affected my relationship with my patients right from that time. I just loved helping the patients and being there for them, and then also being able to help my mother, from there. And then I started practicing and enjoying practice.
And how long did you practice in Nigeria before you moved? You moved to Lesotho after that. How long did you practice in Nigeria?
About 4 years plus. Yes.
And what informed the move to Lesotho?
Actually, I wanted to do a conference, go for a conference, a radiology conference in South Africa. And at the same time, while I was looking at the conference and I'd been chatting with some colleagues across, then it actually just felt like, look, you could also practice, because everybody at that time, you look at the fact that outside Nigeria, you could make your practice more rewarding, in the sense that a lot of things you learn by theory, but the equipments are not there. So now you're going to a place where you can find the equipment, things you've only looked at in textbooks, you can see them in real life. Then you can actually be better positioned to help people more. So that was how I went for the conference. That's right. Yeah, better opportunities. That's right. Yes.
And the differences, practicing medicine in Nigeria and in Lesotho, what would you say were the things that were the most different between the two?
Well, first thing first, it was just as I thought it was going to be. There were equipments that you could use. There were things that would be easier to help the people, when you want to operate and so on, things that you can just help the patient and do your theater
things. So your work was made easier.
It was made very much easier. But then I fell in love with the people as well. So it kept me there for 7 years.
Yeah, 7 years.
Yes.
And then you moved to the U.S.
Yes.
Why the U.S.?
Well, 7 years we were there. My wife and I, actually, we're both medical doctors. And for 7 years, we had no kids, no children. It was a challenge. We did an in vitro fertilization that failed, So now when we just left it and then the baby just came by itself, we just felt, okay, 7 years, baby's here. Let's just go rest, somewhere. And then she had always wanted to go to the U.S. So then we moved to the U.S.
Okay. And you practiced in the U.S.?
She wanted to practice. I also wanted to practice, but I wanted by that time now to start being involved in the work of God. Yeah, so we went to the U.S. and we were there for about 11 months. She was trying to write her exams, and at the same time also I was involved in some other ministries and helping out. And after 11 months, it just clicked like, this is not it. Let's get back to Africa. And that's a bit, maybe you can say, the calling, because we now felt that what God was saying is not America, it's Africa, yes.
Speaking of that, usually we'll get people saying that I was doing a particular vocation and the calling came and I had to leave that and pursue what I was called to do, or what my passion really is, or what my purpose is. Now with you it's different. You get to do both. You get to continue practicing as a medical doctor and at the same time pursuing your calling or your purpose. How do you manage to do both? And did it occur at some stage to say, maybe I should leave this and focus on the one that has been placed in my heart to do?
The first thing is that because I gave my life to Christ quite early, when I was 14, it affected my work and my relationship with God. Now that I could not get away from. But now medicine, like I said, initially it was my dad, but I got to fall in love with it and got to love helping people. Now the thing that was there was that me growing up, I kind of was different from other people in the way they saw Christianity and the way religion was being practiced. I just didn't fancy the idea of this issue of money and all these other things. So I felt that if I continue my practice, then I don't have to be dependent on any earnings from the church. Then whatever I do is totally coming from me to be a blessing to the church. So that is how it came on that both my wife and I, we remained practicing, and then we started the work of God as much as we could to sustain
the work.
So our practice actually was sustaining the work. We were the ones putting all the monies and everything into it. So then it was easy to also be able to tell the truth as well. When you don't have to beg anybody for any money coming from them, then you're able to just tell them exactly the way it is.
Was there any pressure from the congregation to say that we want a pastor who is dedicated and is full-time in ministry without having to think that he has to double between being a medical doctor and pastoring?
Yes, it still happens up to now, and I usually have to let them know, because sometimes they call and they just expect that I have to be there. And I say, I'm not sitting in one office waiting for you to come and cancel because you can't afford me. But then what happens is that when you impact them, when you start teaching properly, then they begin to appreciate, because now coming from an educated background and a sacrificial background, then they also know what to look forward to themselves also, because we're starting to teach that you need to work hard, you need to do certain things. You don't have to depend, on salaries alone, or on, you having to do one thing or the other, but rather for you to just love God, serve God, and at the same time do some things to sustain yourself.
Now, Doc, I want to mention this, that it's very important what you're saying, looking at, the issues that have been arising lately of some pastors who are taking, their congregation for a ride and wanting them to fund their lifestyle, and also coming up with some gimmicks, to attract people that are going to give into that. What would you say, just to stress some more, the importance of not depending on the people and ending up resorting to things that are unbecoming in order for them to give into the mission that you are executing?
Yeah, I think the first thing first is genuine calling. One must be really called, not because church is an alternative or that every other thing failed and you thought this is another business I can do that works. That's the first thing. There must be a calling. And when you have that calling, then God will put in your heart also that resilience, that grace for you to be able to love people and be sacrificial to people. That's the first thing. The second thing is for people to also understand what is there in the Bible. Paul was a tent maker while he was also teaching the word. It wasn't until it became too busy and people now could be able to take care of him that he was able to stop tent making. So he said that my hands have been able to sustain me. So it's there in scriptures. The example is very clear that there's nothing wrong in you doing something, write books, sell clothing, do whatever you need to do that is legitimate to sustain yourself. Then you are not under pressure. And the church also will grow faster if all the money is not expected to look after the pastor. Can you imagine if the church has to pay about 20,000, 30,000 to the pastor, what is left is rest. It also depends on the size of the church. But then there are people who have to be full-time, which is understandable, is also there, that the church is supposed to look after those people. So now the third thing as well is that it also helps the church, the members for themselves also to be committed, for them to also be taught how to make it, how to do right things when they are being led by example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are known to be a leader of integrity. And I want to know...
Thank you. I take that as a compliment.
It definitely is a compliment. Who do you look up to? Who has been guiding you? Who has been walking this journey with you? Because I believe that there are some people that have been part of this journey.
Well, when we came to South Africa, we were in Limpopo. We were in Venda. And he's still a father and a mentor, and that's Dr. T.S. Murigwe. He has a big church, but he was also a principal. So I just naturally gravitated to him because he was also educated and he had standards. And when we came to Johannesburg, I also related with Bishop D.K. Adams, who is also in politics as well as in church. And the other person that is also there is Bishop Musa Sono, who has been one of the leaders in the land, who is also having integrity. And those are the people that I've related with and tried to follow up with.
All right. After the break, we'll talk more about the influence they've had in your life.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mzi. I'm at Focus. Please do catch my story on Living Life by Design.
Welcome back to Life by Design right here on Channel Africa, where we're bringing you news, views and interviews from an African perspective. My name is Amanda Machaga, and today in studio we are joined by Dr. Kunle Osoare, who is a medical doctor from Nigeria. He is currently practicing in South Africa. He's also a pastor, as we did mention. So he is running he's in the medical profession rather, and at the same time he is pastoring a church, and his church is called Freedom Assembly Church International. And before we went for a break, he was telling me about the leaders that he's been looking up to and that have shaped the kind of a leader that he is today. And we are joined on the line by one of those leaders. It's a surprise guest that he knows nothing about. On the line, we have Honorable Bishop Dalton Adams. He is the member of the Gauteng. He's the member of the Gauteng legislature. He is the spiritual father to Dr. Kunle, and is loved Dr. Kunle for the many years that he's known him. Bishop, thank you for joining us.
Amanda, thank you so much for having me. What an exciting time. It's good to be on the air with you, and hello to all the listeners today.
Thank you so much. We have your son here, Dr. Kunle Osoare, who is very much surprised, pleasantly so I hope, to hear your voice. Now, Bishop, tell me, when did you meet Dr. Osoare?
Let me first greet my son. How are you, servant?
Daddy, how are you? It's really, really excited to hear you.
Yeah. This is how the twist in terms of life turn out, It's when you are faithful.
Yeah.
The Lord blesses you with such favor,
Mm-hmm.
And they called me yesterday and said that needed to keep it under wraps. So it's your birthday.
He's happy. He's very happy.
Yeah, no. I love him very much. Look, I know Dr. Kunle for many years. God united us, put him in my life and in my space. And I found him to be a man of great integrity.
Mm-hmm.
A man I love very much, a man of his word, great servant of the kingdom of the Almighty God. Very good husband, very good father, very good pastor. I have never had any challenge or issue. I'm a very discerning person. I have the spirit of discernment and very strongly in my life as a gift, and I can pick up anything in people's lives. But I have searched Kunle for many years, and I found no guile in his life, nothing untoward, nothing that would make me, feel that he's living double standards. So I'm really, really excited to be on the air with him today, and just my deep, sincere, heartfelt feelings towards him and his entire family, Amanda.
I must say that you've been leading by example indeed, because I was speaking to him earlier saying there's a leader of integrity, is known for that, something that he takes as a compliment because it is. And being a medical doctor and at the same time pastoring a church, being a spiritual leader, and you yourself also a man of the cloth and working as well, a member of the Gauteng legislature. How important is it to strike a balance between the two? And you've been doing it so well, and I believe that there's something that he learned from you.
I think it's amazing that God allowed us to be able to work in tandem. The calling is first and foremost in our lives, but in the medical field and also in the parliamentary field that I said, it is still involved people, and God's currency is people. So if God's currency is people, we are not just in the business trying to sell products and implement and machinery to people. We're working with people, so it's an extension of our calling. That's why it's not difficult for us to balance it, because in what Dr. Kunle does in the medical field is he's still ministering to people and he's still touching lives. And what I do in the parliament is I also still touch lives and I touch people. So the balance is there. And then we have learned to build around us good leaders, good support structures, for us to be able to function in a greater measure, to make the kingdom of God actually much bigger.
That's very good indeed, Bishop. And I was talking to Dr. Kunle saying that it's unfortunate that there are some leaders that have caused some damage, by the things that have been doing that we read about in papers, we see on television, people being taken for granted and being taken for a ride, being exploited in the name of the church and saying that people must bring money into the church, but knowing that they're going to be misusing that money. I would be doing an injustice if I don't ask you to talk to the people out there and tell them how can they tell when something is genuine, like what we have in studio right now, Dr. Kunle, and when it's not.
The only barometer or measuring yardstick that we can use and people can use, the Bible says, test the spirit, point number 1. 2 is to check whether the person or the pastor or the leader of the fivefold ministry is word-based. When you are word-based, and your ministry is centered around the word and it's Christ-centric, you do not get involved in all the shenanigans that we see happening at the moment. But let me also quickly mention, Amanda, and to your listeners, that what is happening and being magnified by media is only but a small fraction of pastors, men that does, and women that does that. The majority of God's servants and handmaidens are honest, loving, caring, God-fearing people. But people will never, ever highlight the good of who the main cluster of our people are. However, it's imperative that we as the servants of God must continue to advocate that these kind of things that happen in the churches currently cannot in any way be condoned and accepted. It is wrong. It is 1,000,000 times wrong for anyone to ask somebody to bring money for a prophecy. It can never be right. It's 1,000,000 times wrong for you to use any kind of liquid or any type of grass and stuff and feed it to people. The Word of God does not teach us that. Everything must be examined and measured according to the Word. If the Word doesn't say it, we don't do it. It's as simple as that. And that is why our people must not be gullible. Our people must not allow themselves to be hoodwinked by myself or any other pastor for that matter. Because God will deal with us very, very harshly.
Thank you for those words of wisdom, Bishop. And lastly, what words of encouragement do you want to share with Dr. Osoare as is listening and we're about to wrap up?
All I want to say to my son, he must continue sitting at the feet of mentors. He's a good teacher. He's a good listener. He's a good disciplined person who I can speak into his life. And that, everyone needs mentors. Everybody needs to be pulled up from where you are to the next level. And there is a narrative, Amanda, that Nigerians cannot be trusted. But when it comes to Dr. Kunle, my son, and I'm not saying all Nigerians, that's a narrative what people are saying, but he has proven in this South Africa, being a medical doctor, being honest and integral, and in the ministry, he has proven that he's above board. He pays his taxes. He's a good citizen of South Africa. He's an asset to our country. And that's why I love him so very much. And I want to tell him today that I love him. And he's a great example. And I'm glad that God has placed him in my life.
Thank you, Daddy. I love you too.
Thank you so much for your time. And thank you for joining us, Bishop.
Thank you, Amanda. You are blessed. Thank you.
And right after this, we're going to go back to Dr. Osoare and we will wrap up Life by Design.
Hello, this is Tshofatso August Modiga Powers, and you're watching Living Life by Design with Amanda Machaka.
Are sharing stories of people who are living their lives by purpose, and today in studio we're joined by Dr. Kunle Osoare. It's been a very good story that we've had. We've just spoken to your mentor and I must say this, that it keeps coming that you are a leader of integrity, and I was speaking to someone who happens to be a member of your church.
Oh.
Yes, and I didn't know that she was. She mentioned that, it was for the first time that I came to an African church and we were told what our finances were doing.
Wow.
In the church. And I must say that I was very impressed by that, she said. And that's the reason why she stays there. So for me, that points to integrity again. What would you say as we wrap up to encourage people to lead by integrity? Because I think it's something that is a bit lacking in our African leaders.
I'm still trying to recover from that blow below the belt. Anyway, yeah, but going by what you are asking me to talk about is that you can deceive some of the people all the time. You can deceive all the people some of the time. But you cannot deceive all the people all the time. They are going to wise up. All you need is genuine love, heartfelt love, and eventually the people will know that you are genuine. So it's important for our reason, our vision, our basis to be that of love, not of anything else. It is only because of love that Jesus Christ came. It's only because of love that God also gave up Jesus Christ for us. And for us as leaders also of integrity, both in church, also leading a country as well, it must be love for your people. We can say that many times over. Late Papa Nelson Mandela loved South Africa. So it is that basis that made him decide to give up after just one term in office without thinking of himself. So it is love for the people that, fuels our decision. In the absence of that, we would think of self first. And that's all I need for us to know.
If you're doing out of love, you will do it right.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kunle, for joining us.
Thank you, Amanda.
This has been Life by Design on Channel Africa, The African Perspective. Let's connect on Facebook, Living Life by Design. On Twitter, it's at Living_Life by Design, as well as on Instagram at Living_Life by Design. And remember, we are also available on YouTube should you want to catch up on what we're doing in studio. Also, the podcast is available on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za. And from myself, Amanda Machaka, producers Bradley Chabalala and Yamin Tlenyama. Thank you for listening. Till next time, and remember, you are the architect of your life. Hello guys, and welcome to Living Life by Design with Amanda Machaga, a channel where we share stories that inspire purpose. So do subscribe so that you don't miss out. We talk to people who are living their lives by design. They tell us how they did it so that you too can be inspired. Make sure to subscribe.